Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. All right. Well, hey, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Miriam Castilla. I've been looking forward to this because she's an expert in quite a few topics that I'm personally very fascinated with and have been for a while. Miriam she's an author. So she's the author of the best-selling book, the 5-minute magnetic money management system. Love the alliteration in the title there. And also the founder of Magnetic Money and the Magnetic Money Coaching Academy. So, all things law of attraction and the science behind the law of attraction. I got fascinated with this stuff years ago when I read The Secret. And, at first glance for me, it was all a little bit kind of woo woo, but, it seems like there's really something to it. The other thing I found fascinating about Miriam when we first connected is she has a background in engineering and finance. So, two career tracks that tend to be very, I don't know if practical is the right word, but kind of, this is how it is. And you can see it. Here's the proof. And then, law of attraction. So anyways, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about how you transitioned into the field of work that you're focused on today. But with all of that, Miriam, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm really excited about our chat today as well.
Yeah. I am as well. And so tell the listeners what part of the world you're in, because I think this may be the first time I've had a guest from the future on the podcast. It's
Correct.
what I think
Yes.
Wednesday morning, your time, Tuesday afternoon, my time.
Yes, I am a time traveler from the future. No, I'm in Australia, which means we're across the date line. And I'm in Adelaide, South Australia. So basically, if you cut Australia in half, I'm right down on the southern coast there in Adelaide. Beautiful, gorgeous Adelaide that nobody knows about and is a well-kept secret. And we quite like it like that. We've got great
I don't
beaches,
blame
great
you.
food, great weather.
I don't blame you. I mean, I know enough about South Australia to know it's beautiful, and don't blame you for wanting to keep your beautiful little slice of it a well kept secret. Um, so tell us a little bit more about magnetic money and everything that you've kind of built along with that, and what exactly is it that you're focused on? What types of people are you working with and helping? Because I know you've got a few different kind of branches of it, it seems like.
Well, yeah, it's kind of more about bringing a few different pieces together to take a more holistic approach to money
Okay.
because, generally speaking, most people will either have this really practical, you've got to get your money sorted, let's set a budget and, look at your P&Ls kind of approach,
Put
or
cash in
it's
envelopes
the
for all your
full.
different bills.
Yeah, all of that stuff. And it doesn't really consider the mindset or the energetic side, right? And then there's the other side where people will go, oh, it's all about manifesting and law of attraction, and you just got to vision it and believe it and it'll happen. And I'm like, how about we bring all of that together and actually make it work, as a whole, because you can't do one without the other. And that's something I'm really, really big about, because like you said, I've got that background in finance. And so I'm like, well, how do we make something work? How do we break it down into simple steps? And how do we get to the best possible result as quickly and efficiently as possible? So that's the engineer in me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you run a coaching program, right? Where you will work with someone to help them, and I guess just improve their overall relationship with money and building wealth. Would that be a good way to sum it up?
Yeah, so Magnetic Money is a group coaching program, although people get a lot of one on one access to me. And it's really for small business owners who know they could be doing a hell of a lot better, both in terms of how much money they're making, how easily that money comes, and also
Yeah.
what they get out of that money. I think most of us have been um, in that situation where we've gone, hey, I just made all this money. How come I don't feel like my life has really improved or I've really gotten ahead? So, what we do in Magnetic Money is we look at all of those factors and we help people not just grow their income, but also grow their net worth and their confidence around money. I talk about us having a relationship with money, which to some people is kind of a new concept.
Yeah, I imagine the relationship with money is where you have to start with most of your clients, cuz whether we realize it or not, we do have a relationship with money, or the concept of money, or the concept of becoming wealthy. So I guess one of my first questions for you is, why do so many people have such a messed up relationship with money?
Yeah. So, it's two main things. One is guilt, and the other one is lack of education, right? So most of our generation, my generation, sorry, Wes, you're younger than me, went through school and we didn't really get shown how to take care of our money. And it's still the case now. I speak to young
Yeah, that
people and
was
they're like, no, no one really shows me. And mum and dad don't know what to do.
yeah. Yeah, there was none of that. I went through
Yeah.
business
And
school
then,
and
you
there's none
graduate
of
and
that.
they give you a credit card and yeah. Exactly. So we might learn how to run a business or how to read business financials. And I remember when I first started building my finance business, my accountant would say, man, your business is doing great. Well done. Keep it up. But meanwhile, I was still drowning in credit card debt that came from having gone through a divorce and having to rebuild my life. So that's a huge thing. We end up in this love hate relationship because we don't really know what to do with it. We want our money to do all this stuff for us, but we don't know how to actually be the master of it and how to put it to work for us. And then, like I said, the other side is guilt, all this
Yeah.
programming around don't be greedy and so on. Because having abundance and wealth is about feeling deserving of it, first of all. If you don't feel like you're deserving and worthy of it, you're going to make it really hard for yourself to attract it and bring it into your world.
Yeah, I imagine the guilt is usually closely associated with more of a scarcity mindset, where you feel like, hey, if I have more than a certain amount, then that's less for other people. Therefore, I should feel guilty about that. But, if you can grow into more of an abundance mindset, right? Which I imagine is something you talk a lot about with your coaching clients, then that should remove a lot of that guilt, right? Because doesn't matter how much wealth I'm able to build, that's not taking away or making the pie smaller for others, but it is actually putting me in a position to, give back in so many different ways, whether that's through, creating more jobs through businesses or investments, or, charitable work, or starting a nonprofit. I mean, the options are almost endless, the more and more wealth that you're able to build in terms of how you can give back and contribute. So, and I'm sure there's all different reasons why people, kind of develop more of this scarcity mindset than an abundance mindset. But I imagine for your work, a lot of the starting point of your coaching is getting people to flip that switch. So, what are some tactics that one might implement if they recognize they need to try to go from more of a scarcity to an abundance mindset?
Mm. Yeah, and you absolutely hit the nail on the head because when it comes to money and the economy, it's actually an always expanding thing, right? The economy
Hmm.
is always growing and expanding, and it's not a limited pie. But we bring all this programming from childhood into it, where it's like there's only so much to go around, don't eat more than your fair share, don't take your brother's toy. And so
Money
we
doesn't grow on
translate that.
trees.
money doesn't grow on trees. Who do you think I am? Rockefeller. Even my German mother used to say that. I'm
Yeah.
like, really? So when in magnetic money, I talk about, the magnetic money code, and it's really that sort of law of attraction side, which when you boil it down, it comes down to how you feel about money. And then the second part of it is the mindset, your belief systems and your programming around money, what it takes to make it, whether it's okay to have it. And then the third piece of the puzzle is the managing your money and actually having confidence that you know what to do with it. So we start with that bit that translates to being able to attract money in, which is about how you feel about it. And for most people, so you ask me, where does someone start? We start by, first of all, actually becoming aware of what's going on. It's very easy to jump ahead and go, oh, I'm not making enough money. And you have all this resentment and frustration. But let's back it up a little bit and go, okay, well, how do I actually feel about this? What am I expecting as an outcome of this next piece of the puzzle I'm going through in my business? What's actually going on? So actually starting to switch on to noticing, because you get what you expect, right? And also, we have a tendency to focus on what we don't yet have and what we want that hasn't come yet, rather than
Hmm.
actually focusing on what we do have that we want to expand and grow. So we tend to be problem focused rather than solution focused. And so that's kind of, I guess, a metaphor or a parallel to how law of attraction works. What you focus on expands. If you keep focusing on the problem and why it's not working, your brain literally shuts down and you can't see the solutions. So you've got to learn how to switch that up and actually notice all the abundance you do have. Start celebrating the money that is coming in, and all the options, the freedom and so on you have. And that is about actually building a whole new habit. So that's where we have to start.
We'll get right back to the episode in just a minute, but if you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode. What are some examples of what that habit would look like day to day? I mean, are there specific things you're
Yeah.
coaching your clients to start doing? I mean, I'm thinking, is it, like a gratitude journal? I mean, affirmations, like, are there certain things that you use to help to start? I don't know if program is the right word, but some of these different
Mhm.
habits with your clients that are going to help them shift their mindset.
Yeah, so there's a few things that you can kind of get into a routine of doing. One thing I would just say quickly is to be careful not to get into, just I'm ticking the boxes, where's my money kind of
Yeah.
routine, because a lot of people do that. They'll go, well, I did my affirmations, I did this, I did my journaling, show me the money. And it's not
Yeah.
about that. It's actually about reconditioning your body and rewiring your brain. So that's why I say you've got to start by noticing what's really going on, not what you think is going on. So there's a bit of training in there. And it comes down to journaling is really great. Um, Gratitude is fantastic, but you've got to be careful too, because gratitude often comes with a side serve of guilt, right? Because
Mm.
most of us have had that experience of, oh, be grateful for what you've got, and there's the guilt again, and that guilt energy, that's it's not okay for me to have this. So really noticing these kinds of things. And then I'm not one for here's your formula. I'm more one for here's what we're looking to achieve. Now let's try a few different ways and figure
Yeah.
out the one that works best for you. And it can evolve and change as you grow. Does that make sense?
To me, that makes a ton of sense on several different levels. One, I mean, I've been guilty of, spending all this time to try to develop the perfect routine, right? And maybe that's beneficial for a while, but then you just get so into, the routine of it that you are just kind of checking boxes. You're almost, tuning out
Mhm.
while you're doing it just to be able to say that you did it. And it totally makes sense that, what works for one person, to help develop these habits is not going to be the exact same formula that works for the next person. And to try different things, to me it's like fitness, right? I mean, fitness and nutrition, right? Like, it's not the exact same formula for every single person to get results. And you probably want to find something that's sustainable, right? That you can actually
Absolutely.
implement into part of your day-to-day life, where you're not going to just go through the motions. You're going to get the benefit from it, but it's also not so rigorous that you do it for a couple of weeks and you can't keep up with it past that.
Yeah. And it's got to fit your lifestyle. Like, you have young
Yeah.
children. If I said to you, hey, Wes, get up every morning, meditate for half an hour, go for a half-hour walk, and then journal for half an hour, you won't last the day,
I'd be up
right?
at 3:30
So
if I if I wanted to get all of that in. But
that's
yeah,
right.
but I used to be able to do more of that. I used to be, you know, early riser, knock a lot of that type of stuff out in the morning. As we started having kids and our routine changed, like, I still do some of the same things, not all of them. I've added things that I didn't do in the past, but the time of day is definitely different. So
Yeah.
imagine that has to evolve for most people, just depending on what else is going on in their life.
Mm. So I'm going to share a hot tip for your listeners just on this topic, while it's front of mind for me. And
All
that
right.
is, we're talking about, yeah, there's all these different things you can do, and you've got to figure out the one that works best for you. Ultimately, it comes down to, I say it as start high, stay high, which means you want to get into that high vibing place, that good feeling place, first thing in the morning, and build a little bit of stability and momentum there, so that, as things start coming at you, they can't throw you off course. You basically want to build emotional resilience, but be in a good feeling, an abundant feeling place, because when you're in that place, you're open, right? So if you want to talk about it from a law of attraction kind of language point of view, you're going to be magnetic to abundance because you're vibrating at that level. And if you want to
Mm,
talk about it just from a brain chemistry kind of level, because it's the same thing, it's just different ways of looking at it, right?
yeah.
Brain chemistry wise, your mind is open to creativity and, finding solutions and having great ideas. So it's about getting ahead of the game. And if someone has young children, that might involve them, having their shower in the morning and just closing their eyes and spending that time, letting the water flow over you and just imagining this beautiful stream of abundance, and just spending a minute being so grateful for all the awesome things you have in your life that you love, and all the good things that have happened for you, and just letting yourself, like, training yourself to stay in that place without the, yeah, but I still haven't got this, yeah, but that thing hasn't worked out yet. Like, that's really interesting to notice how little discipline we have in actually managing our own thinking.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. And I think, like, for me at least, there's been, like, it's frustrated me a little bit when I finally hit a goal that I've been working towards, and my mind automatically goes to, okay, well, now this is next. And I'm like, damn, I didn't even, like, slow down to enjoy that or celebrate it at
Mm,
all. My mind's already on to the next goal, or, that's great, but wouldn't it be nice if, we were able to do this?
yeah.
So it does take some, first of all, awareness, as you pointed out, and then some real discipline to essentially train yourself to to look at things differently.
Absolutely. And Wes, when you're doing that, you know what you're actually doing? You're training yourself to be dissatisfied with life. Like, that's
Mm,
a big one, right? To go, shivers. Every time I achieve something, I'm beating myself up because I haven't achieved the next thing yet, or I'm jumping ahead and I'm not actually stopping to enjoy it. So even just recognizing that and going, I don't want to do that to myself. That's huge. And when I get people to put their money system, like their actual money management system together, one of the 8 steps is to stop and celebrate. It's like non-negotiable. You've got to spend some money celebrating that you've just achieved this milestone, and you need to have planned it in advance. So that really helps to go, okay, I'm going for this goal. When I achieve it, how am I going to celebrate it? So you want to share that with somebody, you want to write that down, you want to be really clear on it. And then when it happens, you want to actually do it and just allow yourself to be in the moment and really enjoy it. And that's a huge reconditioning of your body, because it's about living in the now. And that's where all the teachings of Eckhart Tolle are so important and so
Mhm.
powerful, because that's what it's all about. Be here right now. Your life's freaking perfect. Don't worry about tomorrow. When you get there, enjoy it.
It's so crazy how our brains are wired though, and like, because it sounds so common sense when you say it like that, but we've spent most of the conversation so far talking about how we need to train ourselves to realize these things and train these good habits, because naturally we kind of just, you know, fall into these other habits. How much of it, like, I don't know, is this how humans have always been wired, or has it changed over time? I mean, now with technology and social media, like, it's so easy to go down that slippery slope of seeing what others have and what they're doing, and be envious, and you're mostly looking at other people's highlight reels. You're not seeing the full picture in most cases. I imagine that's contributed to it, but like, have humans always kind of been subject to, you know, wanting more, wanting better, not really living in the moment?
Yeah, so I love that question so much, because there's actually a lot behind it. So, number one, I don't believe that we're naturally wired to be dissatisfied. I think that's a habit. So, you said we've just spent all
Okay.
this time talking about how we have to rewire and train ourselves to actually enjoy and appreciate where we are. That's because we've spent every day of our lives so far being trained and conditioned to constantly be searching for the next thing. So it's not that it's our natural inclination, it's just that it's so wired in, because we have just run that program over and over and over again, and so the neural pathways just fire without you even recognizing it,
And it
like it's
probably
an
starts
unconscious
at
thing.
such a young age, where it just like seeps into your subconscious when you're, younger and more
Yeah,
impressionable. I mean, you know much more about how the brain works than I do, but it seems like we're very, very, our minds are very malleable at a younger age. So especially if you're growing up
yeah.
around that type of mindset and just that type of language, yeah, it's going to be programmed into you. But that's a very good point. We're not necessarily born that way. It's just kind of, we're
No, we're not
conditioned
born
that
that way.
way
And
from an early
I
age.
mean, look at your kids, they're just like running around going, "Oh my God, life is so amazing. I'm loving it." They pick
Yeah,
up the most random things and just get lost in the wonder of life. Like, that's what we're naturally like. And then we
yeah.
have it beaten out of us. Like, I remember my mum would say, I'd come home with a 98% and she'd go, "What happened to the other two?" So it's
It
it's
sounds like
that kind of,
sounds like my mom. She was a teacher.
yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah, and if you're a high achiever, I think it's worse, because when you're a high achiever, the expectations are so high and you have the pressure put on you by your parents, you perceive it more, you put it on yourself, and it just becomes this thing. But the one thing that we are naturally born with, that I think is important for people to recognize, because you asked that question, is that we are naturally still wired to look for danger. So, you deal with people who want to maybe step out of their job and into a business. And I think
Mhm.
it's really important for anyone looking for a big upgrade or a big change like this to recognize that your biology is still caveman biology. that says it's
Yeah.
not safe to step outside the cave. You know, you could get eaten. And so we need to recognize that and kind of, just number one, embrace it and go, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but it's okay. I'm not going to get eaten. I'm just starting a business. It's going to be okay. And,
Yeah.
and, and to recognize it and to kind of appease that side, calm that side of our brain down and go, it's okay, I'm safe. So literally, I'm not big on affirmations for a whole host of reasons, but the just reminding yourself that it's okay, I am safe. If you're feeling anxious about doing something new, that's really helpful because it actually calms your amygdala. And unlike most affirmations that people tell themselves, you actually know it's true, right? So it's
Yeah, that's
okay,
I mean,
I am safe. Your nervous
that's
system
worked
calms
for
down.
me. Sorry, I think there's a little bit of a delay. I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, no, we have a delay. It's
Yeah.
the traveling around the world thing.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's impressive that it's only like a split second of a delay. Um, yeah, but I've kind of figured that hack out a little bit myself where, if I'm stressing about something or worried or concerned or scared about something, you just kind of remind yourself like, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to go to bed with my beautiful family in our beautiful, comfortable house. None of us are going to be hungry. Like it could be far, far worse. So, kind of to your point, we're still safe. And I deal a lot with people that are experiencing this, when they're considering stepping out of their comfort zone and starting a business. And I saw something years ago that changed my perspective on this. I've shared this with a lot of people that are going through it themselves because you're exactly right. I mean, our brains naturally are wired to say, whoa, 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 like that's unfamiliar territory. And then your mind will just run wild with all these scenarios of what could go wrong. And if you really kind of stop and zoom out and like look at some of these different scenarios that are running through your mind, or even better if you have someone from the outside, if you were to share it with them and get their perspective, you probably realize most of them are completely far-fetched and completely unlikely to happen. So I'm sure you've probably come across Tim Ferriss, over the years. Tim Ferriss, the author, 4 Hour Work Week, and great podcasts and stuff. So he did this TED talk years ago. I think he calls it fear setting, right? So he's talking about this exact topic where, if it's business and you're, struggling with a big business decision and it's scary, or, whatever it is, this applies to basically every aspect of life. Write down, what the decision is, write down the worst case scenarios that could happen, right? If just everything went completely wrong, right? So all these wild ideas that your mind is conjuring up, put pen to paper, write them down. And then write down things you could do, proactively do, to minimize the risk of those terrible things happening. All right. And then thirdly, write down, it's been a while since I've watched this, so I may not be getting it exactly right. But then lastly, write down what you could do to bring yourself back to even or where you are today,
Mm.
even if all of those terrible things happen. And in doing that, what you usually realize is that one, most of these worst case scenarios are highly unlikely. Two, there's things that are within your power to do to greatly minimize the chance of them coming to fruition. And three, it's usually easier than our minds want to allow us to believe to get back to where we are today. And I think that's a
Yeah.
really healthy kind of perspective to look at these type of tough decisions with.
Yeah. And you explained it perfectly, actually. I do take people through that process sometimes in workshops. And, most mindset coaches tend to shy away from that kind of thing, or people who are trying to develop a positive mindset, they'll shy away from it. And they're always trying to, quickly wrestle themselves back to a positive frame of mind. But I think the power of that process is go through it, go to worst case, and then what'll happen? Well, I'll have to live under a bridge in a cardboard box. Okay. And what are you going to do about it? And it just gets you to face it, right? And then you realize, A, how ridiculous it is, B, that you have all these options, and C, that you'll be like, life will still go on no matter what. And just
Yeah.
facing your fears negates them. It's when we resist something and we're like, oh no, I don't want to look at that, I don't want to think about it. That's when we give it power.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back to the episode, but one quick note, success doesn't happen in a vacuum. So if you'd like to learn more, you want to go deeper and interact with like-minded people, I'd love to have you join the free Path to Freedom Facebook group. You can join by going to pathtofreedom.com/group and become a part of the Path to Freedom community. All right, back to the episode. Yeah. I mean, I think if you just try to focus on the positive and kind of put your head in the sand and pretend like nothing negative could happen, especially if we're talking starting a business or something like that. I mean, that's just, it's not a responsible way to go about it. You want to focus on the positive outcome that you're striving for, but you want to go into it eyes wide open, knowing what the potential downside is. But I think if you've gone through that sort of an exercise, you've really thought through, all right, what are some of my biggest challenges likely to be, and what can I do to get in front of those, decrease the likelihood of them happening, even if they do happen, how do I scramble back? And I think for me personally, at least, like, it was learning to look at quote unquote scary decisions through more of that lens. And then, somewhere over the years, my mindset shifted from being more afraid of regret than I was afraid of failure. And I think that was a game changer for me as well. Like, I'd rather not regret not trying something, right, than trying it and it not going as well as you would have hoped.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you have those big things, it's so empowering to actually go right through that process, not try to sugarcoat it, and just say, okay, well, what are my options? What would I do? And also what you just said about, I don't want to live with regret, which is, it's actually a hypnosis technique that we use for lots of different things, but even for something as simple as somebody who wants to stop smoking, you take them down a future path where, they stop smoking and they see how their life turns out and all the health benefits and everything they get to have as a result. And you can take them down the path where they keep chain smoking and, they end up sick and old and blah, blah, blah. I mean, we all end up old, but the sick part is different. So just having
the emphysema
realizing, you have the power, right? Which way do you want to go? Which future would you rather create? And then it's like, great, I get to choose. And the moment you take back your power and you're not just, feeling like you're at the mercy of some outside force, everything changes.
Yeah, it really does. I imagine, like, when you take people through your workshops and for example, that fear setting exercise, it's probably very, very helpful to have someone from the outside look at it and maybe talk through or bounce ideas off of you of, preventative measures that you could take. Cause I think we sometimes get so caught up in our own minds, you even start to buy into some of the BS that your mind is conjuring up. Like, oh, well, if it all goes wrong, you're living under a bridge, your family's on the street. Imagine it's really helpful to have someone, from the outside say, come on, is that really going to happen? Like, are you going to let it get that far? Are you going to let it get that far out of control to where, you lose your home and your family's living under a bridge? I think that perspective is good in a lot of cases.
Totally. And that's why, we need coaches or people that we trust who have our best interests at heart and can see the bigger picture. Or, this is also why I'm so big on group programs, because the interesting thing is that in my program, the people see each other do it and they'll pull each other up, and then they go, oh, shivers, yeah, I actually do that too, or I have a similar thing. And so you see yourself being mirrored in the people around you, and you go, oh, okay, you can't see it in yourself always, but you can see it in others. And that's really, really powerful. And, often I'll be talking to somebody and they'll be telling me, whatever they're concerned about. And then after a while, I'll go, do you realize that you just told me this, but then you actually argued against yourself and told me the exact opposite? And they don't even realize.
That I can see, and I can definitely relate to seeing things about yourself and someone else. And I don't know if I'm strange in this way, but I get so annoyed when, like, sometimes a person will irk me, and it takes me a minute to put my finger on why, and I'm like, oh, because they're doing that exactly the way I would do it. And it drives
Yeah.
me nuts sometimes, even if it's not like a negative thing, right? Like, oh, that person's, pretty witty with their sarcasm. They remind me of me and it annoys me. So maybe I have some
Yeah.
work to do there. But
Well, that's shadow work, right? That's a Jungian thing where we reject what we don't want to accept about ourselves, and we project it onto the people around us. So really, whenever we're annoyed with somebody else, it's an invitation to look at that part of ourselves and to actually do some work around forgiving ourselves for maybe being that annoying, sarcastic person every now and then, or whatever it is.
yeah, it's fascinating. So, so much else I want to get into with you. I imagine so a lot of the upfront work is, helping people reassess their beliefs when it comes to money and building wealth, and moving past some of the guilt, and maybe past some of the negative habits that are associated with money and building wealth, and forming those better sustainable habits. I imagine another big part of it is having a clear goal of what they're working towards.
Yeah,
So,
it really helps.
assuming that that's a big piece of this, right? Like, what's what kind of process do you take people through when it comes to goal setting and being specific? And because I've tried so many different things over the years in terms of how I want to lay out my goals and how I want to measure my progress. And so I'm very curious as to what you recommend when it comes to goal setting. Hey everyone, we'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, so the journey with goal setting for me has been interesting because, like most people, I started out with you've got to set your goals, you've got to write them out lots of times, they've got to be really front and center. And these days I actually take a different approach where it's like my goal is to be happy, right? My goals are really broad. They're really almost generic. Like my goals are to have lots of freedom to travel, to spend time with people I love, to enjoy excellent health, and to have lots of love, joy, and laughter in my life. Like they're my goals. It's not my business is going to have this level of turnover by that date. So they're the things that I attach to because there's so much room for me to move along the way to fulfilling those goals, and I can get straight into the feeling of it. And just backtracking to like when we started this conversation, the reason I get people started on how do you feel about money is because if I say to you, hey, what do you think about money? That's really hard to pin down. But the thing is that your thoughts follow your feelings, right? When you're feeling positive about something, you're not going to have negative thoughts about it. So the feeling is actually a really powerful place to start and create transformation because everything falls into place from there. And you can actually recognize it so much more easily than the 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day we have buzzing around. So anyway, going back to goal setting. So they're my goals. Like my goals are really big. And yes, within that I go, oh, hey, it'd be really great to do this. It'd be really great to do that. But these days I trust that the flow of life will take me on the best possible path for me. And, I may pursue a project and it doesn't go anywhere, and I'm not going to beat myself up about it or feel like I failed. It's just I've learned something. I'm going to recognize that this is not the path forward right now for whatever reason. Maybe it'll make sense in the future and I'll go a different path. It doesn't mean I can't achieve my goal. So by not micromanaging my goals, I actually am much kinder to myself. And I just find it so
Yeah,
much easier to navigate life. Does that make sense?
totally. And for me, I would almost say that like goals and vision are interchangeable for me at least, because I've kind of, I think, at least started to learn exactly what you just described, which is, if you get so specific with your goals, then you kind of box yourself in, right? Like you very much limit how you have to go about hitting these things, and that can be incredibly frustrating if the plan that you laid out to hit this goal is not working, or is taking longer than you want it to, or maybe it's just not enjoyable, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think my vision has evolved to be much more of what you described, which is, I want to get the absolute most out of this life that I can, and have the freedom to do life with the people I want to do it, work on things that are challenging and exciting, and help other people you know get on their own path to freedom, if you will. Um
Hmm.
and just enjoy it in the process. I have goals, right? So, we have numerous businesses, right? So we have goals tied to each of those businesses. But anyways, I think I'm starting to learn at least that if you can let go a little bit of the control of how you have to achieve those goals or what that looks like, the more you just open yourself up to opportunities that are going to come your way. If you get too focused on this is exactly how we're going to do it, you end up with blinders on and you're probably missing opportunities left and right. So I think
Yeah.
part of that, call it vision, call it goals, is being comfortable not knowing exactly how you're going to get there, but trusting that you will get there if you continue to focus on it. And obviously you have to put in the work and the effort, right? It's not magic, but
No,
um
it's not magic. And see the other side of it as well, which is kind of strange. We're talking about having these big goals, which are really more on that level of vision. And then the other side of it is just having logical next baby steps that take you there and taking those steps. So it's almost like you eliminate the middle ground because that's too hard for us to figure out. And yes, in a business, you're going to have goals and you're going to test and measure. But if you take the pressure off yourself, you leave yourself more flexible to go, well, maybe that's not the right goal for us right now. So if we just focus on the big vision and what's the next logical baby step to take us there, it works itself out automatically, right? And that's the same with managing your money. So when I teach people how to put their money system together, everybody wants financial freedom, right? Everybody wants to be financially independent. Cool. What's the next logical baby step? Well, for some people, it might be, I don't have a buffer in the bank, in case I can't work for 3 months or more. For some people, it might be, I have a pile of credit card debt. For others, it might be, I really need to smash out my investments, get ready for retirement. So what's the next logical baby step for you? And then you just focus on doing that to the best of your ability, and it all kind of comes out in the wash.
so how deep do you get with your coaching clients in terms of different investment strategies? I mean, it makes total sense to me that, everyone's at a different kind of place in their journey to financial freedom, but are you really digging deep with them in terms of, hey, you've got X amount of, money right now that should be invested, or X amount of, income right now that could be put towards different types of investments, and, recommending different investment vehicles. What does that side
So
of it
I
look
don't
like?
go there, is the short answer. That's financial
Yeah.
advice. You need to
A lot of
sit with
red
a
tape.
licensed financial planner. They need to go through all your bits and pieces. So I don't go there. I will give people, thoughts, ideas, questions they should be asking themselves or a financial planner, and we will share resources. Like, I'll tell people what I do, and others in the group will share what they're doing. But it's always that, when it comes to financial advice, it's highly licensed as well. So you really then need to sit with a
Yeah.
financial planner, and we have those resources within the group and people that we can tap into, but it's not something you can kind of teach in a group program, and it's not something that I even want to do. I mean, I used to work in finance, and there's a reason I left. too
Yeah.
much
Yeah. It's
red tape.
red tape is kind of dry too, if that's all you're talking about day in and day out. And I assume that was kind of the case, but was curious. But you're essentially giving them a roadmap, right? And helping them get a better sense of where they currently are on the roadmap, and what the next, as you put it, logical baby steps are to
Yeah.
to keep working towards. And usually, for most people, it's a roadmap with multiple ways that they could go, right? Multiple pathways to get there. So I know we're
Okay.
coming up on time. I gotta ask you about the hypnosis, the
Mhm.
hypnotherapy. Is that how you would
Yep.
say it? So what's the scoop here? This is legit. I assume. This is one I've always scratched. Like, I buy into the law of attraction. Like, I've seen it work in my own life, and but the hypnosis, I've always scratched my head at it a little bit. I don't get it.
Cool. I love that you're so direct with your questions. It's awesome. So, so where do I begin? The problem with hypnosis is it's an unregulated space, and it's used a lot in the entertainment industry, right? So people have this misconception around what it actually is. But
Hmm.
hypnosis is simply about allowing you to access um, things that your unconscious is experiencing, like basically taking a shortcut so you can see what is actually going on at that deeper level. And we access that state through what is known as trance. And trance is the most natural thing in the world. Like, every time you're driving your car and you're thinking about, oh, I've got to do this later, I've got to pick up the kids, what are we having for dinner? Oh, shivers, did I turn off the oven? And you've not paid attention to the traffic, like, you're in a trance. Every time
Yeah.
you're sitting watching TV, watching a movie, and you're really into it, and your partner's talking to you, asking you questions, and you just don't hear them, you're in a trance. So it's
Yep.
actually a really natural state. And it just so I always say, I'm just the tour guide. My job is to get you there and to help you get into that relaxed state so you can start to see things differently. So you can put your critical conscious mind aside for a minute and actually dive a bit deeper. And so what we do with hypnosis is you actually get to see, kind of the deeper, bigger picture. So you can maybe see that, hey, the reason I won't allow myself to have things be easy is because somewhere back in my childhood, something happened that made me take on a belief that it's not allowed to be easy, that if things are too easy for me, it makes me a bad person. So it allows you to kind of unravel those kinds of things. And because we're going back to that deeper level, it allows you to make a different decision. And it really is quite magical. And the reason I went there and trained in it is because I was coaching people, and every month they'd come back with the same old excuses, not having done their homework. They were just stuck over and over and over again. And I figured punching a client in the nose wasn't okay. So I realized that, this is like a deeper seated thing. And I really need to figure out how to help them get out of their own way. And that's why I trained in hypnosis. And it really is quite magical. Now, the way I use it in my group program is I give people processes and pre-recorded audios that they can take themselves through, so they can kind of, go to that deeper level of awareness and figure stuff out for themselves, which is really, really cool.
So they don't actually have to sit through a session with you necessarily.
No.
Do they need some training or guidance like before they can take the pre-recorded
Yeah.
material and run with it?
Yeah. So there's a few custom processes that I've developed specifically for, my people, small business owners who are looking to get out of their own way. For example, one of them is called the old money story. And it's really about helping them recognize, what is that story that I keep telling myself? Because when you work at that level of story, all the beliefs that we hold fit in underneath that. The story is like the umbrella that colors your world. So it might be a story that it's not allowed to be easy. And, hanging off of that story is a whole lot of limiting beliefs that will hold you back. But if you can go to the level of story and change it and recognize that most of the time it's not even your story, it was your parents' story and you just took it on, then you can choose to change it and you can start to wire in a new story. And just the awareness of, that's just a story that I bought into, that's huge in terms of unraveling it, because when you recognize something that was an unconscious pattern, you're consciously aware of it. So immediately it's no longer an unconscious pattern that's just running in the background, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine this is not a, one time kind of fixes it. It's ongoing work. I mean, I'm sure it depends on how kind of deep rooted
Yeah.
the unconscious beliefs are. But it sounds like it starts with awareness, right? Like, hey, this is something that I need to work on. Targeting it, right? It sounds like if you're going into, hypnosis therapy, you want to have a sense of what are the issues or the topics that I want to try to work on. And then I imagine it's just like most other things in life, you have to at least stick
Yeah.
with it for a while if you really want to get lasting
It's a
results.
tool, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
tool, and it's a really powerful tool because it shortcuts all that, that mental gymnastics of trying to figure stuff out. And it just cuts through all of that crap and you just go, that's what that's actually about. And it's incredibly liberating and it's fast, so you can
So
actually
it
make
it just
big
kind of
jumps
becomes
forward.
apparent to you, or do you need someone to kind of take your feedback and then interpret that feedback for you?
No, it just becomes obvious. You suddenly see what you couldn't see before. It's really interesting. Like using the example I gave you before. Say something happened in childhood where something happened. You got in trouble for taking more than your fair share, and you took away from that I'm going to get punished if I get what I want. That's what you took away from it. So what happens then is so that there's a decision made, right? Every limiting belief is actually a decision. If I get what I want, I'm going to be punished for it. Like the other shoe's going to have to drop. So then something else happens that might reinforce that. And it's like, shivers, that's actually true. And then something else happens. And so it becomes this daisy chain in your nervous system that just keeps reinforcing that original decision and belief. And so then it turns into, how come that, I can't just have things go easy for me in my business? Why is it that every time something good happens, the bottom has to drop out somewhere else, or I have a fight with my spouse, and you can't really see it. But when you use a process like hypnosis and you go, it's actually all part of this one pattern, and it all goes back to me having made a decision that was totally bogus, then you can see how that's just not even true. And it literally kind of collapses. It's super powerful stuff.
There's so much I want to ask you about this. I know we're coming up on our time, and you're just getting your day started, but it sounds like, I mean, is this in the same ballpark as like psychedelics as therapeutic tools? I mean, I've heard and read some about, people in a responsible, controlled setting using a variety of psychedelics
Yeah.
to do some of this same type of internal self
Mm.
work.
And I mean, you mentioned Tim Ferriss, right? And I know he's
Yeah,
huge
he's
on funding research into
yeah,
psychedelics.
big
And
proponent of it.
yeah, and they're huge in helping people with PTSD and,
Mhm.
helping vets get through all sorts of trauma. So I think there are huge parallels. Like, we're just not using a drug, we're using a natural process of relaxation in hypnosis, whereas psychedelics help you open your mind and get, I guess, a higher level, a higher viewpoint with the drug activating certain parts of your brain. I don't fully understand how they work, so that's
Yeah,
just kind of my language. But it,
yeah,
it is about actually getting out of that beta brainwave state, which is a stress pattern, and getting into those more relaxed brain states where it's, alpha, theta, delta, which is where healing happens and where higher awareness kicks in. And that's what hypnosis takes you to. Like, it's just about getting you to relax. That's
yeah,
really
yeah,
it.
which is so hard. I mean, we have monkey minds, and it's hard to just, yeah, sit down and relax. I mean, I've not done a ton of meditating, but when I kind of finally felt like I was starting to get some benefit from it, it was like when I took pressure off of myself to be like trying to, follow a certain regimen or something, but more just like just sit and let my brain go wherever it wanted to go, and no judgment or no trying to force it, back in a different direction. And I can see how there's something really to that. So anyways, the hypnosis stuff is fascinating to me, and would love to learn more about it. Would love to have you on the show again at some point. I think there's so many other
Yeah.
interesting topics we could cover, dive deeper into. I mean, I feel like we just scratched the surface with some of this, but um so tell the listeners, I mean, you're based in Australia, but I assume you have coaching clients all over the place.
I do, all over
Okay.
the globe. Lots in the States and
Okay.
Canada, some in Europe as well. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell them where they can go to learn more about the coaching. I know you have a lot of other, kind of just free resources out there. You have your book. Where should we point people if they want to get in touch with you or learn more?
Cool. So if they just want to have a little general look at what's available in terms of working with me, just jump on my website, miriamcastilla.com. You'll find a link to the Magnetic Money Club, which is my coaching community where we do all of this work that I talked about. A really fun place to start is I have a quiz that's called the Money Habit Archetype Quiz. And it's actually about just uncovering what your money pattern says about your wiring in terms of your money story. So that's a really good place to start. That's just miriamcastilla.com/quiz. It'll let you know what your habit archetype is around money, and then let you dive deeper into, what's that actually all about? Where does that come from? And what's behind some of these unhealthy patterns maybe that I'm experiencing around money?
Yeah, that's cool. That would be a good starting point. So you got your website, you got the quiz. We'll link both of those in the show notes. Anything else you wanna highlight for folks that are interested?
I think that's a really good start. If you want to get your money sorted, you'll find it on my website. I've got the book, The 5-Minute Money Management System. The difference with that book as compared to other, money systems and so on, is that it really takes into consideration the mindset implications of how you manage your money. So if you're somebody who's like, I can't do budgets, I hate taking care of my money, that's a really good resource for you. You'll find the links to jump through to Amazon, depending where you are in the world, from my website. So that's another really good resource.
Beautiful. Well, tons of good stuff out there, and we'll make sure that all of that is linked in the show notes, easy for people to access and find. And Miriam, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation, the previous conversation that we had, and I find the work that you do fascinating, and can totally see why the vast majority of small business owners out there would benefit from working with someone like yourself. So appreciate you coming here on the Path to Freedom podcast, sharing a little bit with the audience, and wish you nothing but continued success. And you're welcome back anytime if you want to talk more about any of these topics. If you can't tell, I nerd out on this stuff. So
Yeah,
you're welcome anytime.
absolutely. I've totally loved chatting with you, Wes, and please do ask me back anytime. I'm totally up for it.
Awesome. Would love that. All right, everyone. Miriam Castilla, the magnetic money guru. Can we call you a guru? I think you're up there with some of the other gurus of the
I'll
world.
take
Tony
it. I'll take
Robbins-esque.
it.
You kind of Tony Robbins-esque a little bit. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time.